Well, good morning and welcome. I know that you guys are enjoying your conversation this morning, but we're going to get started. Before we officially open up the council meeting, we have some friends from Fort Riley that are here, and if I could encourage them to stand up so they could be recognized. What I will tell you is we have some soldiers here that are on a tour of Wichita that are thinking about Wichita transitioning here to civilian life. So this is kind of like their one college visit, and so we want everyone to be on their best behavior and welcome them to our city. We hope that you truly do enjoy your day here in Wichita, and we hope you come back. So absolutely. Thank you for your service, and enjoy a very fun day, starting with, I think, a tour of the new baseball stadium. So I think you're due to head out over there now, so we'll let you jet over there, Andrew. So thanks for stopping in.
Thank you.
Take lots of pictures, Andrew. As we call our meeting to order, we will have an invocation from Reverend Debbie Garrett of Open Door Homeless Resource Center, and following that, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. We invite you to join us for both of those. Reverend Garrett, great to have you.
Let us all stand for our prayer. Most gracious Father, we welcome you into our meeting place today. We thank you for every person here. We thank you for waking us up this morning, fully clothed and in our right minds. We thank you, Lord, for our health and strength. We thank you, God, for your loving arms of protection that surround us. Lord, we ask that you forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Remove all bitterness, resentment, and unforgiveness from our hearts, Lord. Remove all the clutter from our minds in the name of Jesus. I ask, God, that you bless our city council leaders. We thank you for trusting them to make the right decisions about the communities in which we live and serve. I pray that our city council leaders work together with love and respect for each other and their ideas. I pray the decisions that will be made here today will impact our communities in a positive way. Lord, I ask that you continue to provide and protect the men and women that work for the city of Wichita, especially our police officers that put their own lives on the line to keep our streets safe. Place a hedge of protection around them and their families. Lord, help us to remember the less fortunate. The Bible says, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. All these things I pray in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend Garrett, thank you again. Appreciate you being here. And our first item on today's agenda is to approve the minutes of December 3rd. Any changes or corrections? Seeing none, I move that we approve the meeting minutes for December 3rd. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Dr. Walt Chappell, Racial Profiling Update.
Good morning, Council. I'm going to wait for a second to make sure each of you get a copy of the presentation I'm about to make. So we'll get it out to you and then go from there.
So I would encourage you to go ahead and start, Walt.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. I want to start by saying that we have, since 1998, been working as a community to try to solve a very simple but very complex problem. And that is the disproportionate number of stops of people within our city, particularly black drivers. When they are stopped disproportionately, it becomes a problem for them and for our city. So first, we have to acknowledge the problem. To solve one, you have to know you have it and figure out, all right, why is this disproportionate enforcement of the laws taking place? Now, that isn't isolated to Wichita, Kansas. As you know, this is a problem nationwide. And we're not here to cast any dispersions on our police officers or our police chief or the city of Wichita. We're just saying that there is, in fact, a problem to be dealt with. So we were fortunate enough to receive the data from the municipal court and from the police department in April. And all of that data from 2016, 17, and 18 gave us a chance to take a look at what has transpired since our new chief came on board. Now, we really thank Bob Layton for hiring Gordon Ramsay. This man has integrity, he has transparency, he's worked with us very closely to try to come up with some ways to look at how do we do a better job of what we already do, which is try to protect the citizens of our city. Now, I would like to ask you to think about this for a minute. We've had 5 studies now of the stops in Wichita, Kansas. Each one of them has shown you're twice as likely to be stopped and given a citation if you're black. Now, that trend has gone on since the year 2000. I sent each of you a copy of that data last night, and you have it in front of you today. What is different this time is we've had a chance, because of the transparency of the chief and the municipal court, we've had a chance to break that down by the year, by race, by violation, by officer, by beat. So now we can drill down far enough to start seeing the pattern and practice of what's going on. And what it becomes very clear is that many of these stops end up with citations for non-moving violations. I want to bring your attention to that particular handout that you'll see here. It's looking like this. It says non-moving and moving violations. Now, it took days to pull this all together. I hope you understand that. I've got over 100 hours invested in making sure that we can boil it down to a single page and start getting a snapshot of what's happening. When you combine the tag violations, the driver's license violations, the insurance violations, and defects, headlights out, taillights out, that kind of thing, those are non-moving violations. They have very little to do with safety. But when you add all those up by year, you're going to find that blacks are getting about 50% of their citations for non-moving violations. When you look at the right-hand side, you're going to see that white drivers, that includes Hispanics as well as white Caucasians, are much more likely to speed, more likely to run a stop sign, or to have a turn signal violation. But yet blacks are still twice as likely to get a citation. Now, the other part of this problem, and since I've only got 5 minutes, I have to condense this down very quickly. You have to hopefully take some time in one of your work sessions to sit down and we'll talk together. We'll kind of look this over in detail. You'll get a better idea what's going on. But for today, let me say that you have a problem that has been going on for years. Under the previous chief, we had a situation where 114,000 citations were issued in 2007. We're down to 42,000 now. Under our new chief, we have fewer accidents, we have fewer citations, and the focus is on intersections and sections of street where we in fact have accidents. If the city engineers would better engineer some of those intersections, we wouldn't have any collisions. It has nothing to do with writing more tickets. So I ask you to think this out. I realize my time is probably up. So I want to make sure that out of courtesy to you that we stop now, but I would like to ask that you continue this conversation. Call, ask questions, let's meet together in a work session. We'll go over the details and you'll see very clearly we've got a problem we can and must solve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do you want to call the next speaker? Oh, I'm sorry, Brandon.
Thanks, Mayor. Walt, I had a question for you real quick.
Thank you, sir.
You showed in this handout that the number of citations is going down and that black drivers are getting these non-moving violations. Do you have any recommendations or suggestions?
Yes, I do. Thank you for that question. Stop giving out gotcha tickets. You know, we have an opportunity, and the chief has been very good in bringing this forward. The idea of a voucher, for example, for a defect, If you have a headlight out, thanks for letting me know. Gosh, I didn't know that, or a tail light, you know. So what the chief has been doing, he brought in some folks from Minnesota that said, well, let's do lights on, where you give a voucher to the person instead of a citation. So rather than having a fine to pay plus fix your taillight, you now take this voucher to a machine or to a mechanic and said, will you take care of my bulb? And sure enough, the bulb was fixed, the driver's back on the road. He didn't have to come up with a fine and court costs plus fix the ticket. The other thing would be tags. You'll notice that there are hundreds of these citations for white and black drivers that have to do with a tag violation. Well, what has that got to do with the city? That's a county tax, it's a state tax, and yet our officers are handing out tickets. Now they've got to pay that ticket, plus go ahead and get the tag renewed. So if the officers would say, gosh, did you realize your tag is expired? Gee, I didn't, thank you. Please take care of it. That would be another fix-it, if you will, as opposed to citation. The other part of the problem is we've got 51,400 people in Wichita that have had their license suspended. Now that's a carryover from all the previous years, and it's a big, big amount. That's 24% of all the suspensions in the state of Kansas. We have only 13% of the population. So we definitely have a problem that's accumulated over these years. It was called the Weed and Seed Program. It was called, if you will, the COPS program. I don't know if any of you remember that back in the 80s and 90s. These people, some of them have not had a license legally to drive for 10, 15, 20 years. So this is all accumulating, and we can stop it by having an amnesty program. We need at least a month of amnesty to try to clear the books. Go back and get these original fines paid, but don't keep piling on more debt. It's not a crime to be poor, and that's what I see right now, is a lot of these have to do with economic issues rather than driving safely and keeping our streets so we don't have accidents.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
No. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, next speaker.
Sheila, Officer, Racial Profiling Update.
Good morning. As Walt has said, or Dr. Chappell has said, that we have been working with the city manager, and we want to thank Leighton for his open door policy to us, and also to the Chief of Police, Gordon Ramsay. With and under his leadership, he has provided improvements in the behavior and performance of the service that we get in our community by our law enforcement officers, and we definitely appreciate that. Our mission for our board is to work with law enforcement in eliminating racial profiling. We have been working with the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department as well as the Wichita Police Department in doing that. In ways of trying to eliminate that, what we do is help them go through policies, address policies that need to be changed, as well as training that possibly need to be changed. As a matter of fact, we were instrumental in finding the Tools for Tolerance racial profiling license that the city did buy from the state of California with regards to Tool for Tolerance, which is a racial profiling management tool. We also work with Chief Gordon in communication with our community. We think it is very important, and he has been very instrumental and continuous in keeping that engagement. In 2017, this board, and in 2019, this board presented a workshop, a driver's license suspension workshop. We had in 2017 over 300 attendees in that workshop. We were not able to serve everyone there, but definitely it is a realization that the problem exists. In 2019, on August the 24th, we had over 250 attendees to that workshop. We were able to assist some, but again, it was just a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. So really my job here is to put in reality how it affects license suspensions and revocations affect families and communities. It is an extreme hardship and harmful, not only to the families, but to the communities. Because then, without a driver's license, it makes it impossible to obtain and maintain employment. Businesses lose, families lose. It is a potential exposure to the criminal justice system, because we do know that when you're not able to pay, then it acquaints you with the criminal justice system, whether it is additional fines and fees or incarceration. The other loss is it is a cost, not only to the police, but to the State Department of Motor Vehicles, in administrative costs, in court costs, and using resources that are diverted away from really public safety issues. The burden is on personal liberties. When you don't have a driver's license, you can't get about. You have daycare, you have work, you have health care, you have food, daily needs that you need to address, but without a valid driver's license, the inability becomes stronger. Driver's license suspension and revocation is a repressive system. It perpetuates and criminalizes poverty. The bottom line is that it has not been proven that suspending or revoking license make our roads any safer or improve drivers' behavior. On the contrary, it states today that it proves from the statistics that Dr. Chappell has provided is that it is a disproportionate targets the poor and the communities of color. It is not a safety risk, it is a system driven by dollars. It is not efficient, it is not safety, and it is not a reduction in accidents. Recently, the board met with our clerk of the courts, Mr. Nathan Emery, and we had asked for an amnesty program because we believe with the 51,000 drivers in the city of Wichita alone, an immediate relief is needed. People need to be able to drive. And we do know that even though your driver's license is suspended, you're going to drive anyway because you need to take care of your family. So the choice of driving or not driving is really not a choice for people that need to survive and take care of their families. So we're asking for an amnesty program. There have been several states that have implemented amnesty programs. One state, the state of Ohio, implemented an amnesty program for 6 months. It is a win-win situation because the state of Ohio were able to bring in millions of dollars in revenue, and then thousands of drivers were able to get their driver's license back. So again, a win-win situation. If driver's license and suspensions were related to serious public safety, like DUI, it wouldn't be a problem. I'm open for questions.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to thank you and Dr. Chappell for the work that you do. It's very important and definitely working on suspended licenses. And Senator Frascado, who's here, has talked about working on a bill that would help people with revoked licenses as well get a restricted license. So all of that work is very important, and I appreciate you both bringing this to our attention.
Thank you very much. And thank you to our senator. Thank you, Olivia.
Councilmember Claycomb, do you have questions too?
Yes, I have a question of staff. Thank you, though, for presenting today. This question of suspended driver's license, I think this is for Jennifer. Is that a city or a state issue? I mean, is there something we could do at the city level?
I'm going to defer to Nathan, who can really talk more about the state requirements for those fees, if Nathan is available.
So the suspenditures that they've been talking about occur when someone fails to take action on a traffic citation. And what's required by the law, and it is a shall, is that after a period of 30 days of noncompliance, we shall report to Topeka. And then it's Topeka that suspends the license.
Okay, so it is a state, right now it is the
Yes.
state that issues that. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next speaker.
Derek Jackson Bay, United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People Wrongful Death Claim.
Is Derek Jackson here? Doesn't appear to be here. So Madam Clerk, next item.
Consent agenda items 1 through 13.
Any items need to be pulled for discussion or clarification on consent agenda? Seeing none, I move that we approve consent agenda items 1 through 13.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Report of Board of Bids and Contracts dated December 9th, 2019.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Hannah Lane, Department of Finance, today to present the Board of Bid recommendations and open requests for proposals. First engineering bid we have is KDOT Redbud Multi-Use Path K96 to 159th. Recommendation is Donliner and Sons for base bid of $3,920,167.52. KDOT 17th Street Broadway to I-135, defer to December 16th Board of Bids. Water distribution system to serve Sandcrest 4th Edition, No Walk Construction for $40,327.80. Anna Street to serve Sandcrest 4th Edition, Conspec Incorporated for $145,697.20. 159th Court East to serve the Ranch 2nd Edition, Conspec Incorporated for $157,761.90. 2020 Hess Pump Station Dehumidifier Replacement, the Waldiner Corporation, base bid of $245,890. Add alternate 1 of $57,540. Add alternate 2 of $57,540. Water distribution system to serve villas at Oak Creek, Meese Construction, Group 1, $55,603. Group 2, $176,523.75. Group 3, $288,367.90. Group 4, $329,570.25. Teakwood to serve Whispering Lakes, Conspec Incorporated, base bid of $281,231.90. 2020 OP3 Ultra Thin Bonded Overlay, APAC, Kansas for $2,965,000. 2020 OP3 CIP Street Repairs Phase 3, PPJ Construction for $636,300. 33,000 GVWR Cabin Chassis with Grapple, deferred to December 16th. Install fiber optic communication line, deferred to December 16th. 2019 tree and stump removal, deferred to December 16th. Interior exterior modification of one residential house, deferred to December 16th. Parking garage LED lighting modifications, Batteries Plus for base bid of $104,855. Add alternate 1 of $53,324.02. Fire hoses, Wise Fire and Safety Equipment for $170,136.65. Remodel of WPD Crime Lab, Bauer & Sons Construction for $683,000. Auburn Hills Roof and Siding Replacement, Burwell Construction for $59,471.87. Remote Slope Mower, deferred to December 16th. Snow removal for Wichita Public Libraries, deferred to December 16th. The current open request for proposals: Vehicle Fleet Information Software for Public Works, CDBG Youth Crime Prevention for Housing, Home Investment Partnership for Housing, Emergency Solutions Grant for Housing, On-Call Plumbing Repair for various departments, False Alarm Registration and Management for Police, and Financial Advisor Services for Finance. If you would like to become a registered vendor or propose on a solicitation, there's the city's e-procurement website. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, I would move that we award the bids as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public hearing for the Douglas Market Development CID.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the City Council. Mark Elder with the Office of Economic Development. The item before you today is a continuation of the public hearing from December 3rd regarding the establishment of the Douglas Market Development Community Improvement District. This stems back from a development agreement with Douglas Market Development on November 12th, in which part of the agreement has the developer redeveloping 4 properties: the former state office building into a medical education campus, the former Sutton Place building into a student housing facility, former Broadway Plaza into a hotel, as well as the former Henry's building into culinary training center. Within that development agreement, it also included a proposed community improvement district, which is what the public hearing is about today. So the CID boundaries include all the streets that surround this redevelopment district, but does exclude the state office building, the Sutton Place, as well as a few other buildings that are not owned by the developer. It does include, here you see the Henry's building at 124 South Broadway, as well as the Broadway Plaza, which will be the future hotel at 205 South Broadway. And then it also includes 2 city-owned properties, the Chester Lewis Reflection Square Park, as well as the Alice parking lot. Without the CID eligible cost would include site infrastructure, design and consultants, as well as FF&E. And there's also a portion that would go to public asset improvements and maintenance, which would be the streets, sidewalks, and park, which is part of the city's 10% on that project. Okay. The CID is proposed to be for 22 years at a 2% sales tax. This is pay as you go to the developer with a maximum of $3.6 million in reimbursable cost. The city would receive the 10% of the CID to go towards the district for the streets, park maintenance, street maintenance, et cetera, and that's estimated to be $360,000. With that, I would stand for any questions.
Any questions at this point? Seeing none, we'll go out to the community. Anyone would like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll give you time to.
Mayor, members of the council, good morning. My name is Jason Gregory with Downtown Wichita, 507 East Douglas. Just want to offer our continued support for this exciting project. It's actually multiple projects. This project brings significant jobs and economic impact to an otherwise vacant block in our downtown, and it will ultimately bring students, employees, and visitors to this area, which will be a dynamic addition to the core, and this mix of uses is highly desirable. This project, including the proposed hotel, will activate the ground floors of these buildings, which will contribute to an increased streetscape environment, especially along Douglas Avenue, which our organization, in partnership with the city, have worked so hard to improve in recent years. We appreciate the city's continued support of this project and look forward to the positive impact it will have for our community. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Seeing none, we'll bring the discussion back to the bench. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to surprise some people today and support this CID. I have been notorious for not approving CIDs in the past, but this one I believe is truly a catalyst project that addresses some blighted buildings that have not had a development activity for decades, specifically the Henry's building, and also looking at the public improvement opportunity to support a park that is very meaningful to our citizens, and being able to improve that without costing us dollars by using the CID proceeds. Those are reasons why I'm going to support this particular CID today.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? We'll turn it over to Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that we close the public hearing, place on first reading the ordinance adopting the Community Improvement District, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item.
Public hearing and request for a letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds, CNC Development, Atlas Aerospace, LLC.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Tim Goodpasture with the City's Office of Economic Development. For the record, the item before you today is a request for a letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds for the benefit of Atlas Aerospace. Atlas Aerospace was founded in Wichita as Product Manufacturing Company in 1947 and was purchased by Atlas Aerospace in 2007. The company has its campus located at 4425 West May, which is between Harry and Pawnee, west of West Street. So an aerial here, you can see Harry Street running along the top of this image. The big ditch and I-235 are on the left side, and West Street is running not quite through the middle there. You can see the area outlined in red is where the campus is that represents the property that Atlas Aerospace occupies today. Atlas is a manufacturer and assembler of aerospace, maritime, and defense parts. The company is proposing to build a new 71,000 square foot addition to its campus and is requesting a letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $4.8 million, which represents the investment in the new property. In addition to that investment, the company is projecting it will invest another $6 million in new machinery and equipment. That machinery and equipment is exempt from property tax at the state level and therefore does not need to be bond financed to achieve a tax abatement. The project will actually be built by CNC Development, which is owned by Chris and Jennifer Lett, that are the former owners of Atlas Aerospace. When they sold the company, they retained all of the real estate in CNC Development, and that is a real estate holding entity that they have, and it owns all of the real estate that is occupied by Atlas. But the benefits in terms of the sales tax exemption on construction materials and property tax abatement will accrue to Atlas Aerospace. So this is a closer look at their campus. Again, the area outlined in red is what they occupy today. The area outlined in blue is where the new 71,000 square foot addition would go. This is just some images from their last addition. The company currently has 625 employees and projects that it will add an additional 50 as part of this expansion at an average annual wage of almost $56,000 a year. Based on that, the company qualifies for a 100% property tax abatement on a 5+5 year basis. The estimated value of a property tax abatement on the $4.8 million investment, assuming the appraiser's office appraises that at 80% of that value, because we rarely see a dollar for dollar increase in value based on the investment, is approximately $117,000 annually, with the city's share of that being approximately $30,000. A cost-benefit analysis was conducted by the Center for Economic Development and Business Research at Wichita State University, which shows an overall ratio of benefits to costs of 1.43 to 1 for the city, 1.31 to 1 for the city's general fund, and 1.67 to 1 for the city's debt service fund. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the City Council close the public hearing, adopt the resolution of intent, and authorize the necessary signatures. Darren Harvey, who is the Director of Human Resources for Atlas Aerospace, is here and can answer any questions specific to the company, as is Dale Ward, the attorney for CNC Development, and I would be happy to answer any questions as well.
Questions at this point? Seeing none, we'll go out to the community. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. We'll turn it over to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you very much to Darren and the CNC, and I'm glad to see that you guys are growing, and I'd like to take the recommended action to close the public hearing, adopt the resolution of intent, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
Public hearing and issuance of industrial revenue bonds, Bombardier Learjet.
Again, Mayor and council members, Tim Goodpasture with the city's Office of Economic Development. The next item is a request for the issuance of industrial revenue bonds for Bombardier Learjet. The City Council approved a letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds for Learjet on June 3rd of 2014 in an amount not to exceed $52,700,000 with a 5+5 year 100% property tax abatement. The 2019 request is for the issuance of bonds in an amount not to exceed $1,251,710.32. The company has made upgrades to its facility to accommodate the Global 5000 series completion work that recently came to Wichita, as well as improvements to its manufacturing and service center, as well as the acquisition of new machinery and equipment. A cost-benefit analysis was conducted by the Center for Economic Development and Business Research at Wichita State University, which found an overall ratio of benefits to costs of 1.60 to 1 for the city, 1.26 to 1 for the city's general fund, and 2.49 to 1 for the city's debt service fund. Therefore, it's staff's recommendation that the City Council close the public hearing and place on first reading the bond ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of documents for the issuance of industrial revenue bonds for Learjet Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $1,251,710.32 and authorize the necessary signatures. Melissa Leiby, who is the Manager of Government Relations for Learjet, is here and can answer any questions specific to the company, and I would be happy to answer any questions as well.
Questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the audience. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring the discussion back to the bench and turn it back over to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much, and again, glad to see Bombardier is having some good luck in their fortune, and I'd like to take the recommended action to close the public hearing, place on the first reading the bond ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of documents for the issuance of industrial revenue bonds for Learjet.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. And motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Charter ordinance amending the terms and term limitations of mayor and city council members and repealing sections 8 and 9 of Charter Ordinance 226.
Before we hear this, I think the Vice Mayor has some new information he wants to share, so I'll turn it over to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So the public's been, provided a lot of feedback on the term limits, and the message is pretty clear that no message should be, or no decision should be made without a public vote. Knowing how passionate the public is about the term limits, it might be a good opportunity to have the discussion with the county as well, as there currently is no term limits with the county commission. So it might be an opportunity to take a look at both of them. But at this time, we looked at it, and the cost of a special election is going to be around $100,000. So it was my understanding with our discussions, Bob, is you could only put it on the ballot within 90 days. So is that correct?
That is correct.
So the next probable election for it to be would be August 2020 primary. So I certainly wouldn't want to endure the expense of $100,000 just to find out whether we want to go forward with term limits or not. So I would like to move that we take the discussion back out to February. We have our mayor-elect here. We can have his input, and the council can have a discussion at that time, whether this is something we want to proceed with, whether we want more community input, or we don't want to address the issue at all. So at this time, I'd like to table the discussion.
Indefinitely.
Motion to defer indefinitely.
And that's fine, right? I'll second that. We have a motion and a second to defer. Councilmember Fry?
I just have a quick question for legal. Does it take a charter ordinance to require a charter ordinance to have a public notice and hearing? Because this came so sudden, and there was no notification except for the agenda item. And a change in a charter ordinance, I think, deserves a notice of a public hearing. And right now, it doesn't appear that that is the case.
There are two ways to amend the charter ordinance. One is by a vote of 2/3. The second one would be to call for an election. So pre-vote, there is not a notice of public hearing. After a vote of the council, if it would be approved, then there is 2 notifications. So from a constitutional standpoint, there's no public hearing notice other than the agenda item or agenda packet.
But to change a charter ordinance, or to require a charter ordinance change,
It has to be changed by another charter ordinance, and that charter ordinance would have to follow the process outlined by the Kansas Constitution, which is to have a vote And then a protest period in the 60 days following the vote is an opportunity to protest. Certainly, you can give much more notice of a charter ordinance. Those would be policy decisions by the council, but there's no legal requirement that a notice occurs 60 days before an item would be taken up.
And that's really what I'm getting at. So I would think
And
that
that's
should be
correct.
part of our discussion as we go forward with this as well. Thank you.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm going to support this deferment. I just want to encourage the community to also consider, as we're looking at term limits, the status of council members as opposed to the mayor. We're part-time, not full-time. I don't know of any council member that works less than 40 hours a week. So as everyone's thinking about this discussion, think about that classification as well and the salary that goes along with it, so that we can get other folks who are interested in running for office to not have to work 2 or 3 jobs to be a council member. But since this is going to happen in February, I would just love for everyone to consider all of those things as well as term limits when this discussion comes back up. Thanks, Mayor.
And Councilmember Claycomb?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also going to support this deferral, but I just hope that over the next few months that people will take the opportunity to research term limits, because there is some research out there that shows, I am in favor of term limits, but I also think that there is some research that shows there may not be definitive answers on 2 or 3 terms and some of the benefits of term limits or extending term limits. So I hope people will take the opportunity to look at that research so that when we come back in February, can have a informed discussion.
And Councilmember Clendenin?
Mayor, I just wanted to thank the public. This is one of those issues that definitely brought out people that actually normally don't speak out on issues, and it's been good to see the engagement over the last 4 days. It's not enough engagement, but it was enough, I think, that we saw that this needed definitely some more attention by the public. So I want to thank the public who got involved and were a part of emailing us, phone calling, texts, you name it. It was all over the board. So it was good to see that engagement.
Anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second to defer this until a later date. Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
2020-2022 International Brotherhood of Teamsters Airport Union Labor Agreement.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. I'm Chris Bezruki, the HR Director. For your consideration and approval is a proposed agreement between the city and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters for the airport, police, and fire employees. This is a proposed 3-year agreement, and it's consistent with other groups that are commissioned, meaning other police officers, and has been ratified by the union membership last month. Let me walk through some of the highlights.
Chris, can you hold on a second till we
Move the mic
clear?
up.
Thank you.
Let's let the room clear so we can hear you.
So if we can walk through some of the highlights of the contract, there again, it is for 3 years. The agreement covers approximately 24 employees at the city airport. There are our security officers, and the agreement is consistent with the 2020 budget that you previously approved. In 2019, the general pay adjustment, in 2020, the general pay adjustment of 1.5 effective 12/4 of 2019 and a 2.5 merit step. And for the employees at O-Step, which are about 3 or 4, they'll receive a $750 one-time bonus in lieu of a step increase. In 2020, it's 1.5, 2.5 for the merit step increase for good performance and for those employees that are eligible. And there again, the O-Step employees will receive a $750 one-time step bonus as well. And 2021, it'll be 1.25 for the general pay adjustment and a 2.5% merit step based on performance for those employees, and a $750 O-Step bonus. There again, those O-Step bonuses are non-compounding. We also agreed to a $100 after-tax bonus for those employees that take and pass the physical fitness test annually. There's an education pay for college degree language that was clarified, specifically which degrees qualify for that stipend. There was some movement from union and from the supervisors to strengthen the sick leave abuse language so that so it won't occur as often. And the emergency medical technicians EMT pay will be increased $15 per pay period in 2022. It's currently at $35, so that'll go to $50. So we're asking for your approval of this agreement between the Brotherhood of Teamsters and amend the wage ordinance that we talked about last week.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Any further discussion? I move we take the staff recommended action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item.
2020-2022 International Association of Firefighters Labor Agreement.
Good morning again, Mayor, City Council, Chris Bezricki. For your consideration and approval is a proposed agreement between the city and the International Association of Firefighters Union, the IAFF. This agreement is for 3 years proposed, and is consistent with other employee groups that are commissioned as well, and has been ratified by the union membership last month. Let me walk you through some of the highlights of this agreement. Again, it's for 3 years. The agreement covers approximately 421 employees in the City of Wichita Fire Department. There are firefighters. The agreement is consistent with the budget that you've adopted previously. For the first year of the contract, there's a 1.5% general pay adjustment and a 2.5% performance-based merit step on their anniversary date. In 2020, the pay adjustment is 1.5, with there again another merit step for those with good performance. In the third year of the contract, the general pay adjustment is for 1.25% and a 2.5% merit step for those employees that are eligible. The EMT, the EMICT, and the AEMT pay for 2022, which is the third year of the contract, will be increased to $50, $100, and $75 per pay period. The other changes in the contract is we reduce the number of employees in the hazmat and technical rescue units and define those as special operations, and that will reduce some of our cost exposure there. The drug testing for firefighters was moved from the DOT regulations to the non-DOT safety-sensitive federal guidelines. And there again, this has been in place for a number of years, but our firefighters are not required to have a CDL license, which is part of the DOT requirements. And standby pay was more narrowly utilized, and policy was clarified. There again, saving potential operational cost in the future. With that, we recommend the approval of this memorandum of agreement between the city and the International Association of Firefighters. That was done on time, and we can amend the wage ordinance as well.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Again, I move that we take the recommended action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item.
In municipal court judicial evaluations and retention.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Council. Nathan Emery, Municipal Court Administrator. Today we're looking at a review of the judges for retention. This is proceeding under Council Policy 36, and we are in year 3 of their 4-year term. This evaluation includes a court performance report prepared by me, survey of attorneys, city staff, defendants, witnesses, and victims appearing in the court to get the sentiment of the stakeholders involved in court proceedings, and a self-evaluation from the judges so that they can look introspectively at how their performance is and how the court is performing. The applicable performance indicators, these actually come from the National Center of State Courts, at least two of them. They're court tools. First is a clearance rate. Our clearance rate exceeded 100%, which means we are moving more cases than we are gaining in a given year. 71% of all cases are disposed within 180 days of filing. That's time to disposition. It shows that we're moving the judges are moving cases at a good rate, and one that relates favorably to other courts around the country. Likewise, less than 1% of cases are overturned when reviewed de novo by Sedgwick County District Court. The survey feedback, in the survey feedback, the vast majority of attorneys appearing in municipal court recommended retention had very favorable opinions of the judges. Likewise, city staff, defendants, witnesses, victims indicated the judges were perceived to be unbiased, fair, professional, patient, courteous, and respectful. Recommended action is to retain municipal court judges Jones, Abbott, Griffith, Kerr, and Zarchin for their third year of their 4-year appointment and authorize a 2.5% merit increase. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the audience. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Any other questions? Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to say, as one of the parties that's been involved when evaluating our judges each year, Councilmember Miller used to do that along with me, and then you have done it the last 2 years. I think our public should be very pleased to see we have such a respected group of judges doing what they do. Slide 5 mentioning the fact that they're unbiased, they're fair, they're respectful, they're professional, and then seeing the amount of work that they do. I know a court date is typically something that people do not look forward to, and to have our judges do so well with this and that they continue to exceed expectations, I think our public should be very pleased by that. So on your worst day, they're getting treated respectfully and professionally and with courtesy. So I'm pleased to make this recommendation.
Very good. You want to go ahead and just make the motion then?
Absolutely. I make a motion that we retain municipal court judges Jones, Abbott, Griffith, Kerr, and Zarchin for the third year of their 4-year appointment and authorize a 2.5% merit increase.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote.
Councilmember Fry, would you cast? Thank you.
Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
2020 contract renewal with Visit Wichita.
Good morning, Mayor Longwell, members of the City Council. I'm Dante Martin, Assistant City Manager. I'm here to present the 2020 Visit Wichita contract renewal. As you know, Visit Wichita markets the greater Wichita area as a major convention and tourism destination, thereby enhancing economic development. Tourism impacts the local economy by bringing new dollars into the Wichita area, generating tax revenue, and creating jobs. Visit Wichita report the economic impact of tourism to the greater Wichita area to be nearly $1.2 billion during 2018. Visit Wichita is led by President and CEO Susie Santos, who is here with us today. Among the many events that the greater Wichita area hosted in 2019 and as a result of the work of Visit Wichita is the United States Bowling Congress Women's Championship, and also the Kansas State High School Athletic Association State Boys Soccer Championship, which was held at Stryker Soccer Complex. As a part of their role attracting or tourism within the city of Wichita or the greater Wichita area, Visit Wichita spent 2019 reaching out to bring future events into Wichita. Among those events, in addition to those, are part of what's listed in your agenda report, is the Association of Rural and Small Libraries Annual Conference, U.S. Figure Skating National Theater on Ice, and the USA Volleyball Nations League. All three of those events scheduled to occur in 2020. In addition to that, the Central State Shrine Association Annual Fall Regional Conference, which is scheduled for 2022. Staff evaluates Visit Wichita's performance based on two primary performance indicators. Those indicators are economic impact, which is measured by future group bookings repeated and serviced, as well as leisure visitors, and also financial stewardship, which is measured by return on total operating costs, return on T-bid incremental room nights, and leisure marketing. Future group bookings, and these are 2019 estimated numbers. We're in month 12 of 2019. We'll have year-end numbers soon. Estimated $12.5 million in future group bookings, an estimated $37.6 million in bookings repeated and serviced, and an estimated $81 million in leisure visitors. As far as financial stewardship, return on total operating costs, 23.27 to 1. Return on T-bid incremental room nights, 6.27 to 1. And leisure marketing, 58 to 1. And Susie's available if you have like more detailed information about performance metrics. Financial considerations in regard to the contract. Visit Wichita receives an annual allocation not to exceed $2.5 million roughly. In addition to that, the City of Wichita pledges a fundraising match not to exceed $100,000, and that's a match above $200,000 raised by Visit Wichita. Also, convention promotion contingency funds, a reimbursement of up to $150,000. Staff recommends the mayor and council approve the Visit Wichita 2020 contract renewal and also authorize necessary signatures. Staff, as well as Susie Santor, are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions at this point? No questions will go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item?
I would like to address the council. Celeste Reset, City Wichita. Taxpayers give Visit Wichita almost $6 million. 2.5 comes out of the general fund. It was up on the screen. And another $3 million comes from tourism and convention BID. That's a lot of money. Visit Wichita offices are currently in Jack DeBoer's property on Waterwalk. They pay almost $300,000 a year on rent. Why aren't they in a public building where we could save that money? Is that really financial stewardship? Jack DeBoer has a 99-year lease on Waterwalk property. We will be lucky if we get $1 a year out of Empty Gander Mountain by King of Freight. Financial stewardship means you try to get some kind of return on your money. So no, not only are we giving $2.5 million to go to Visit Wichita, but then we turn around and pay rent on a building that Jack DeBoer owns, and we don't. That doesn't make sense to me. Riverfront Legacy, who has Visit Wichita as one of their supporters, has proposed 5 development projects costing $1 to $2 billion. Populous was given $700,000 to develop plans, and Visit Wichita chipped in part of that amount. That's interesting. Not only do they get $2.5 million from us, but then they use their funds to support Riverfront Legacy. Since Visit Wichita support their existence by doing convention work, doesn't it make sense they would want the biggest and best convention center possible, whether we need it or not? National convention business is falling off, and there's been numerous national speakers about how St. Louis, San Francisco, Denver are competing for national convention business. It doesn't make sense to build a huge new big convention center and then pay for the overhead when it sits empty, or when we have to subsidize national convention centers to come to Wichita. Populous says renovating Century 2 would cost $236 million, but it includes crazy extras like aluminum-clad panels, a new exhibition hall performing theater for $41 million, pre-function addition for $14 million, and other improvements that add to the cost. Really, it would only be $50 to $65 million to renovate Century 2, and they don't even talk about tax credits for historic buildings. And then let's talk about the $6 million that's going to Visit Wichita. Who's providing the oversight on those funds? Did you all know that the current internal auditor here for the city of Wichita is not even doing auditing? She has been reassigned to do accounting work in the housing department. Have you told Paul Allen of Allen, Gibbs and Hulick, our CPA firm, that our one internal auditor is not doing internal auditing? She's supposed to be monitoring internal controls on money that's spent, on expenses that you all incur, on fund appropriation, and on the handling of transfers like this $3 million to Visit Wichita. When was the last time you changed independent auditors? That's a good business practice as well. But I am appalled that our internal auditor, who is supposed to be providing oversight for these financial decisions you make, like funding Visit Wichita, who wants to build a big new convention center and is paying rent in a building that we get no income from in Water Walk development, has no oversight. I'd like answers to these questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. If there's no other speakers, we will bring the discussion back to the bench. Any other discussion? Councilmember Claycomb?
Yeah, I'd have just a couple questions, and Susie, I think you can answer one. Can you talk a little bit about the return on investment and how
Sure.
That's calculated and how we see the benefits of that?
Yeah, absolutely. In your packet I'll show you which. When you look at the return on investments, we look at them in a couple different ways. We look at it from the leisure visitor, and that is actually, we utilize a company called Strategic Marketing and Research Insights on an annual basis, and they do these for destinations across the country. And so every year they'll go back and look at what we spent on leisure marketing and then return on that. So we anticipate as we look forward into next year, or actually even right now our estimate is for every dollar spent will drive $58 back in. When we look at the group market, again, similar, every dollar we spent, we want to look at what are we bringing an incremental group business in, and on that, we look at the actual room nights that they are booking into it, and you'll see that return on investment as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Susie? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
If there's no other discussion, I would move that we take the recommended action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
2020 Insurance Program.
Morning, Mayor, City Council, Verl Needens, Department of Finance. This morning, the item before you is the 2020 insurance program. Finance Department is responsible for identifying risk, developing strategies to mitigate the effect of loss. One strategy employed is the purchase of insurance. City Code authorizes the purchasing manager to negotiate insurance coverage subject to City Council ratification. As part of the insuring process, staff collaborates with departments to identify potential exposure, insurable interest, and appropriate levels of coverage. Assisting in the process is a contracted insurance broker who, among other ancillary services, negotiates policy rates on behalf of the city and presents their findings to staff for consideration. Most of the 11 policies listed in the agenda report are paid by the self-insurance fund. However, a select few are funded within departmental budgets. Rather than present all 11 of these insurance policies, I'd like to highlight at least 3 of the more high-profile policies we currently have in place. The city provides property insurance on over 250 structures, contents, select machinery, and automobiles with insured total values in excess of $990 million. The policy in place provides a $350 million loss limit per occurrence, with most deductibles at $100,000 per occurrence, with wind and hail deductible at $500,000. Coverage is placed with Zurich, with 2020 rates increasing by 10% to $732,547 based on current values. The city's workers' compensation program is self-funded and self-administered. However, state law requires self-funded plans to purchase excess coverage in cases of catastrophic events. This prevents most funds, in case of these types of events, from becoming insolvent and becoming a state problem. The city's policy maintains a $750,000 self-insured retention, meaning that all losses up to $750,000 are paid by the city, with losses exceeding $750,000 paid by the city but reimbursed by the carrier throughout the year. This policy is currently written through Safety National. The 2020 premium is based on payroll, but the rate will experience a 1% increase for the coming year. Another policy we have is the airport, who purchases a general liability policy with limits to $100 million to protect against claims arising out of operations. Claims could include incidents ranging from anything like a slip and fall to a vehicle collision with an aircraft. Coverage is currently through AIG. The 2020 premium is $40,774, representing a 15% increase over 2019 rates. With marketing complete, staff recommends the City Council receive, file, and ratify the 2020 insurance program. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the audience. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Any questions? Move we take the recommended action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item.
DER 2019-11, Business Improvement District for the Douglas Design District.
Morning, Mayor, City Council, Scott Knable with the Planning Department, for the record. This item before you today is a request to set a public hearing to consider establishment of a business improvement district for the Douglas Design District. As many of you, I'm sure, are aware, the Douglas Design District is a nonprofit organization that provides services to businesses both north and south of Douglas, along from Washington to Oliver. The group itself is membership-based, meaning the businesses within that district currently elect to be members, and that's how they raise much of their revenue. They also raise revenue through grants and other types of fundraising activities. The group is pursuing a financially sustainable model. They started this process a few years ago and are looking to establish a revenue that is not reliant on elective membership, and then also, more importantly, having a financially sustainable revenue source, being able to have staff that is not all volunteer, which is the case presently. The Business Improvement District is a mechanism of financing that's established by state law that allows cities to create these districts and levy a mandatory service fee on the businesses within that district in order to finance additional services that the city does not presently provide through its general operating revenues. Often, business improvement districts are contracted with a third-party organization. An example of that is the approach that's used in downtown. They don't actually use a business improvement district, but they use a similar tool where the city of Wichita contracts with downtown Wichita to provide the actual services as opposed to providing the services to the businesses directly. The City Council in August of 2018 appointed a planning committee to explore the establishment of this business improvement district. Council members Johnson and Claycomb were on that committee along with business representatives from within the Douglas Design District Committee's boundaries. That planning committee has prepared a plan that is included in your agenda packet, which recommends assessing a fee on the businesses that front Douglas, so it would not be all of the businesses within the boundaries of their district, which goes to 2nd Street on the north and Kellogg on the south, but would just be those businesses that most directly receive the additional services that the Douglas Design District provides. That fee would range from $100 to $550 per year and is based on the size of the business, with the smaller businesses having the smaller fee and the largest businesses having the largest fee. It's estimated that that fee would raise approximately $50,000 a year to expand promotion of businesses within the district, and as the report indicates, would be supplemented by continued voluntary memberships from businesses within the overall boundaries of the district that are outside the Business Improvement District boundary, as well as continued fundraising through grants and other types of events. This is the outline on the map here in light purple or pink, shows the properties that front Douglas between Washington on the west and actually Glendale Avenue, which is 1 block east of Oliver on the east. You can see that the lot sizes vary, and so there's varying depths. One thing to mention is that some of the larger properties actually that like East High School and other properties, church properties that are within the boundaries of the district and front Douglas by state law as nonprofit organizations actually do not pay the fee. The fee is only paid by for-profit businesses. So the process that we're bringing forward to you today is asking you to set a public hearing for January 14th of 2020. The requirement is that we then publish the notice of that hearing in the Wichita Eagle and then mail a notice of that hearing to all of the businesses that were outlined in the pink on the map that I just showed you. On the 14th, you would hold a public hearing, receive input from the businesses within the proposed bid, and then make a determination as to whether or not to establish the Business Improvement District. If you do make that determination to approve the Business Improvement District at the public hearing on January 14th, there's a 45-day protest period that follows that action by the council. If a majority of the businesses within that district file a protest petition within that 45-day period, then the council's required by state law to rescind the ordinance that you would adopt establishing the Business Improvement District, and the action would go away. Following that 45-day protest period, assuming that the council approves the Business Improvement District, it is not protested, staff will be bringing to you a contract with the third-party operator, the Douglas Design District, for consideration. Something similar to the action you took just a minute ago with Visit Wichita. And then also on the 14th, one of the actions that you would take is to create an advisory committee whose responsibility it is to submit an annual budget to the council. It's very similar to the advisory committee that Downtown Wichita uses to submit its annual budget. That's required to be submitted by May 15th and then is acted upon in August with the regular operating budget for all of the other city operating departments. State law also provides that each year when you adopt that annual budget for the forthcoming year, there is again a 45-day protest period in which the majority of the businesses can protest the forthcoming year's levy, and if they do that, then the council's required to rescind that forthcoming year levy and disband the Business Improvement District. So that would occur, the businesses within the district would have that opportunity every year. The recommendation is that you receive and file the Planning Committee report, that you set the public hearing for January 14th, 2020. You adopt the resolution of intent to create the Business Improvement District, which will then be mailed to all of the business owners within that district, and you instruct the staff to publish and mail that notice of public hearing. That I'll answer questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item?
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Thank you for your time and consideration of this item this morning. Obviously, Scott addressed some of the logistics of the business improvement proposal, and I know you have the full proposal in your packet, but I did want to just take a moment.
Can you share your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Renee Dexler, the Executive Director of the Douglas Design District here in Wichita. So I did just want to take a minute to speak to not only the impact that the Douglas Design District has made on the community, but also the potential impact with continued investment. The Douglas Design District has existed since 2007, and in that time has made a marked difference to the East Douglas corridor. Anyone who remembers what that strip of land from Olivehurst to Washington looked like 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, understands what a profound and visible transformation has been made. Where there were vacant and blighted properties, there are thriving hubs of commerce and energy. Where there was bare and uninspiring concrete and brick, there is now color, vibrancy, and life. This did not happen magically or overnight. It was through the concentrated and coordinated efforts of small business owners, community members, and volunteers who had a vision for improving their neighborhood. Today, the district not only produces advertising and marketing for small local business, but it engages with the community and serves as an access point to goods, services, and multimodal transportation for our residents. As we're having conversations in Wichita right now about revitalizing our downtown, creating a legacy plan for our riverfront, expanding public and multimodal transportation on our streets, recruiting talent, attracting business, and maintaining vibrant neighborhoods, then continuing development and investment in the East Douglas corridor is crucial. While the Douglas Design District is extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish as an all-volunteer, nonprofit, voluntary membership-based organization, it is clear that in order to rise to the level of what our city needs right now, then we have to increase our capacity. Over the last 8 months, the Business Improvement District Planning Committee researched and reviewed a number of different successful bids in Kansas, as well as throughout the Midwest. Most of these bids have been in place between 10 to 20 years and have continued to see expansion, value, and economic growth. Many of them also started as nonprofit neighborhood improvement associations and implemented bid funding as a more sustainable and efficient way to fund the activities and improvements that were clearly creating value in their community. Considering the success of downtown Wichita Self-Sustaining Metropolitan Improvement District, or the SMID, as well, the Douglas Design District feels we are well positioned to build on our current organizational infrastructure and provide continued value to our businesses and community. We understand that this is a fairly new concept in Wichita, and the talk of a mandatory assessment automatically causes some fear and consternation. Business Improvement District services include management and marketing, events and programming, and beautification and revitalization efforts that the district already provides and can continue to expand on. Businesses can share the burden of these costs collectively and for a fraction of the cost if they were to pay for them alone. A business improvement district also provides capability for more consistency in communication, strategic and long-term planning and development, as well as the ability to leverage fundraising and grant writing efforts for increased revenue. This is a pivotal time for Wichita and involves tough conversations as well as collaborative efforts to really propel us all forward. We encourage our community to engage in these conversations with us and set a new precedent on what it looks like to invest in ourselves. We feel very confident that the Douglas Design District has already proven our value and capability, and we're asking for our business community to continue to invest in this form of economic development and growth. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Christopher Parasho, Wichita, Kansas. I have a couple questions that I've asked about this as it's come up in the news that I haven't gotten answered. If there is a business or two or a few that don't want to pay the fee, is there a penalty or something for them if they don't? How does that get enforced?
I don't know. We'll have to get back with you.
Okay. And if a new business moves into the district, are they notified prior to moving in that they're going to have this extra fee that they wouldn't have a few hundred yards outside the district?
Yeah, well, if you can So today's action is just setting the public hearing?
I understand that. It's
So
just-
there will be a public hearing on this where hopefully staff can answer those questions before the public hearing. So if you wouldn't mind sending an email with those questions on there.
That's why I'm bringing them up.
I'll bet you we can get those answered
Mhm.
before the public hearing on the 14th.
That's why I'm bringing them up.
Yeah, an email would be great too.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
This tags into the question I had about the budget for Visit Wichita. Same thing with the bid, same thing with the tourism bid. What oversight are you providing on the funds that are going to this proposed bid?
So they have a board that will be set up. That board would then provide oversight.
And are you going to look over their financial records? Are you going to review the money that you've given to them to make sure it's been spent appropriately? Who on the city
So
is going to be doing
As
that?
mentioned, annually they'll come back for a review.
Like Visit Wichita did?
Well, they visit with us independently too.
Independently, but this one will be a public meeting.
So
there's-
both, I'm guessing.
Okay, again, who's the individual though that provides specific oversight?
So again, they'll have a board.
But in the city of Wichita, who's the individual that will
Yeah,
provide
I don't know
oversight?
that we have one.
You don't have one? So it hasn't been determined yet?
We don't even know if it's going to exist yet.
But you have bids. You have bids now. You have a tourism bid. Who provides oversight for these districts? That's my question.
So again, you're going back to a previous agenda item.
It's not a previous agenda item. I'm asking you with bids like this one that's been proposed. It's a business improvement district. Who in the city is providing oversight to their finances? That's my question.
So your question on this bid, we don't even know if there is a bid yet. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, they'll be required, as the downtown business district does, they'll prepare financials and also a budget, and those are provided to the city council and to staff for review.
So staff meeting you, city manager Layton?
Submitted to the manager and the finance director.
So that would be Mark Manning,
It'd be Sean Henning.
Sean. And he'll be available for questions from the
She.
public. She will be available. I've talked with Mark. Sorry about that. I haven't met her yet, but she'll be available for questions from the public regarding the finances of the bid.
We're always available, yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other speakers? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Councilmember Fry and then Councilmember Clendenin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I know that today's action is just to set the hearing date, but I do have a question as it relates to that specifically, Scott. And I understand these are nominal fees, but up to this point,
We're
it's
just
all
setting
been
the hearing.
voluntary.
You're not voting on that.
I understand we're just setting the hearing, but as part of that hearing, if we decide to approve this business improvement district, then it would take a majority of the owners to petition that they didn't want to be part of it.
That's accurate, yes.
And that is 92 roughly?
Right, correct.
So otherwise, they automatically would have to start paying, and there's no out or anything.
That's correct, yes. And there was a question about the penalty. The fee itself is not a tax. That was one of the things that came up in the discussion that we had with the businesses. We held an open house and tried to answer all of their questions. The fee is literally that. It's a fee. It's an invoice. And so any penalty, and that would have to be something we would figure out, would be a late fee like you would establish with a.
I get that. My question is more about the process here. So
Yeah, the process is
setting the
established.
hearing date.
Right.
But then we could decide at that hearing to enforce this fee on those businesses. And their only counteraction would be to have a greater than 50% protest.
That is correct. That is the way the state process is
thank
laid
you.
out.
Councilmember Clendenin.
Mr. Manager, I need to clear something up real quick before I even consider moving this forward to a public hearing. I have business interests in this area. My wife is principal owner in a business, and my desire is to abstain today. Is that
You may abstain.
Thank you.
Again, though, I would say today's vote is just setting the public hearing. You're not voting on whether we're going to approve the bid or not.
I would agree with that, but I'm also making a vote to move it forward to a
Right.
public hearing.
Right. Councilmember Claycomb.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the Planning Committee publicly. I know they put in a lot of time. And the Planning Committee was composed of people that are proponents of the bid, but also people that are skeptical of that. And they all took our mission pretty seriously, studied various models. I know we looked at one model today. We must have looked at how many? A lot of models, and landed on this proposed model. Held public meetings, which I thought were very helpful, and a lot of people showed up at those from the Douglas Design District. So I'm going to support this today. I think we're ready to set the public hearing to formally determine if there is an appetite for sustainability of the Douglas Design District initiatives.
Yeah, and I hope that we have plenty of engaged people and businesses as the public hearing transpires on the 14th, but certainly I don't think there's harm in ever having a public hearing discussion. So Councilmember Johnson, I think this is in your district. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I too, like Councilmember Claycomb, want to thank the committee, specifically Scott and Renee. You guys did a lot of hard work and working across factions and came out with this solution. So thank you for that. I would move that we take the staff's recommended action.
Second, we have a motion and a second to set the public hearing date of January 14th. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 6-1 with one abstention. Madam Clerk, next item.
CON 2019-39, city conditional use to allow vehicle and equipment sales on limited commercial zone property generally located on the south side of West Harry Street, 550 feet east of McLean Boulevard.
Dale Miller, planning staff. Going to do this a little bit out of normal order, but because there's an error in the staff recommendations on the front of the page, so I want to make sure I covered those. But so what I thought I would do is the Planning Commission recommended approval, 12-0. Subject to the conditions that were contained in the staff report, and one of those conditions is that it limits the approval to 4 years. At the end of 4 years, the applicant would be required to file an administrative adjustment to get additional time, and then we'd go through that process, and it could be extended. With administrative adjustments, the applicant is required to put up a sign. If staff receives objections, we evaluate those objections, and if they're ones that merit, then we convert it to a conditional use. So if there were significant objections, it could end up back at the Planning Commission for the time extension, would be how that would work. The DAB reviewed it and recommended denial. It's my understanding that the recommendation for denial is primarily based on the South Central Neighborhood Plan, which has a long-standing land use policy position that says that vehicle sales are considered to be a least desirable land use in the South Central neighborhood. So that gets me to the staff recommendation, which the cover page here says that staff recommended approval, when in fact we recommended denial consistent with the South Central Neighborhood Plan. Sometimes we get schizophrenic over there, and as you know, with staff reports, if staff recommends denial, we also include at the very end a set of recommendations and findings for approval, so that the Planning Commission doesn't have to come up with those on their own. So I suspect that was part of the issue there. This is an old gas station, we believe left over from the 50s, that in 2018 or thereabouts was used as a tire shop. We believe it's been vacant for about a year. We now have the current applicant who is wanting to convert the old service station to a vehicle sales, He indicated at DAB that he does not intend to do repairs, it is strictly vehicle sales. And he has agreed to the conditions in that are recommended by the Planning Commission. As you can see there, it's on Harry, just east of the river. There are, again, this is in the South Central Neighborhood Plan, and so that policy statement about vehicle sales applies. Here's the applicant's site plan showing how he would have the display and parking. He's going to be required to fence along the south and east property lines because there are homes to the east and south. And that is the site, and with that, I'd try and answer questions.
Councilmember Tuttle.
So Dale, just to make sure I understand, so MAPC approved,
Yes,
the DAB denied,
correct.
and the staff is requesting denial.
Well, we recommend denial, but when we come to you, the only recommendation we present is planning commissions. I wouldn't have presented the staff position if there hadn't have been the error in what it said on the front of the staff report. My job is to present the planning commission's recommendation.
What he's saying is that there was a mistake. If you look at the minutes, the staff had recommended denial to the planning commission.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the report to you said that we had done the opposite. So he's just clarifying the record that the recommendation to the planning commission was for denial. Staff's not making a recommendation to council today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for the clarification, Dale.
Councilmember Claycomb.
Thank you, Mayor. So I also have a question. And so the minutes that we got from MAPC says it carried 10-2. But was it approved 12-0?
No, the minutes are correct.
The minutes are correct?
10-2.
Yeah.
10-2.
And so, and then in those minutes, or maybe you could just do this again for me, Dale. What are the conditions that the Planning Commission put on this?
They've included the standard conditions. There are 9 of them, but
Sure.
the one that is unusual is that they have limited the approval for only 4 years. And at the end of 4 years, the applicant would have to file an administrative adjustment to get a time extension. And then if there were objections, we would evaluate those, and it could be turned into a conditional use, go back to the Planning Commission and have them review and approve whether there's additional time. That was the Plan Commission's attempt to try and go along with the neighborhood plan that says there shouldn't be additional car lots. But a number of the planning commissioners have concerns with that particular policy statement that most of the properties that come up for consideration for vehicle sales in the South Central neighborhood or along the South Broadway corridor are old service stations or are buildings that are difficult to use for anything other than vehicle repair or vehicle sales. And they feel like that a building that is in use is better than a vacant property. They also express the notion that a vehicle sales lot is like a land use placeholder, that it's easy to convert that to another use should the market dictate that. And then finally, the comments that they've made are that they feel like that the marketplace, if there was more interest in other uses, those uses would be popping up instead of, this makes maybe the 5th or 6th car lot they've considered in the last several months in this area. And so they're just having a hard time with we have no option from the South Central Neighborhood Plan standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that helps.
Yes, thanks.
Any other questions? Councilmember Clendenin, how do you want to proceed?
Well, I have a sharp disagreement with the Planning Commission. The new neighborhood plan, which they just heard, does have many options in it. As a matter of fact, it's a community-led plan that we will be hearing soon. I'm not sure if it's going to be this month or next month. I think next month, we'll be hearing their neighborhood plan. That neighborhood plan takes into consideration many different uses for some of these vacant buildings, especially some of the car lots. The neighborhood has been extremely forthright with me about their desire to have a 74th or 75th or 76th used car lot between 47th Street South and Kellogg. There is nothing in the law that allows a neighborhood to change the character of their neighborhood if they would like to change the character of their neighborhood. So I understand this is difficult for the neighborhood and for the Planning Commission, but we have a clear-cut neighborhood plan that we're still operating on, that was adopted. And so because we have a clear-cut neighborhood plan, the neighbors have been very forthright with me and the community, which fits within the golden rules. I'm going to make a recommendation that we deny the conditional use.
Okay, and I'll second that. Before we vote, Councilmember Tuttle, did you?
I was just going to clarify, because I'm still a little confused about what we were going to be voting for. So what you're saying is your motion is a denial, so that it would not be allowed?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second for denial. Cast your vote.
May I clarify with Councilmember Clendenin if you wanted to adopt particular findings to support the denial?
Yeah,
He just mentioned the golden rules.
I guess I wasn't. The opposition to the neighbors' opposition in light of the neighborhood plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Motion passed, what, 6-1?
Yes.
All right. Madam Clerk, next item.
2019 Housing Choice Voucher Program Budget Adjustment.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Sally Stang, Housing and Community Services Director. The item I have for you today is a budget adjustment for the Housing Choice Voucher Program as part of our Wichita Housing Authority. So the Housing Choice Voucher Program provides rents and utility subsidies for low-income families, elderly, and disabled. The program is administered by the Wichita Housing Authority through the Housing and Community Services Department, and we service Sedgwick, Butler, and Harvey counties, with the exception of the city of Newton. The HCV program is funded and regulated by HUD. The 2019 operational budget was actually estimated based on 2017 funding, just due to the cycles of congressional appropriation and the timing of the city's budget. The program was experiencing a structural deficiency in that HUD was not providing sufficient funding to utilize all of our voucher allocation for all 12 months. So in the spring of 2019, HUD placed the program in quote-unquote shortfall status. It was expected that the program would be $1.6 million short of the subsidy needed for all of our vouchers. As such, to be eligible for shortfall funding from HUD, our finance staff worked with HUD to reconcile program revenues and expenditures back to 2013. The program staff audited files and reports to ensure that no over-subsidization was occurring. And the finance and program staff worked with HUD to apply for shortfall and set aside funds. And the program was prohibited from reissuing turnover vouchers or permitting transfers to higher cost areas. So the staff efforts were successful. The program received additional funding, over $3 million over the anticipated budget to fill that gap. Some of that came with our initial 2019 HUD funding, which wasn't known until April of 2019 due to the government shutdown early in the year. We applied for and received over $850,000 in shortfall funding, special funding for the VASH program and portability, and we were able to obtain HUD-held reserves that were previously for Sedgwick County prior to the consolidation of the Sedgwick County Housing Authority into WHA. So we have a total budget adjustment of $3,096,972. This is a very positive thing for our program. Renewal funding for 2020 still remains unknown, as Congress has not passed a funding bill. But based on calculations and what we're hearing from DC, we expect that the renewal funding calculation, because of that increased funding in 2019, will be sufficient for 2020. But due to those HUD restrictions on reissuing turnover vouchers, we will be starting 2020 over 300 units under leased. So in response to that, we have actually contacted the top 500 families on the waiting list, from which we've heard from 169. And we've started working to implement the limited referral-based homeless preference within the program to try and rebound utilization back up in January 2020. So at this point, we're recommending the council approve the budget adjustment, and I stand for any questions.
Questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Any other discussion? I move that we take the recommended action and increase that budget. A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote.
Councilmember Clendenin, would you cast your vote, please? Thank you.
Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public hearing and issuance of Airport Special Facilities Revenue Bonds, Docs Friends, Inc.
Mayor and City Council members, I'm Tim Goodpasture with the City's Office of Economic Development. For the record, the request before you today is the issuance of Airport Special Facility Revenue Bonds for Docs Friends. Docs Friends Incorporated is a private not-for-profit 501c3 organization that was founded to raise money to build a permanent museum for Doc, a World War II Boeing B-29 bomber that was built here in Wichita. The museum is located at Dwight D. Eisenhower National Airport. The area outlined in red is where the airport, or where the museum rather, is located. The building is a new 35,000 square foot building at Eisenhower National Airport. On December 5th, 2017, the Airport Authority approved a letter of intent to issue Airport Special Facility Revenue Bonds in an amount not to exceed $6.5 million. The bonds are for a sales tax exemption only, and the organization is now asking for the issuance of bonds in an amount just over $5,771,000. This is an image of the exterior of the museum. These are images from inside the museum. The one on the left is from the main floor. The one on the right is from the mezzanine or the second level looking down on Dock. And these are images of some of the educational displays in the museum. A cost-benefit analysis was conducted by the Center for Economic Development and Business Research, which showed an overall ratio of benefits to cost to the city of 22.65 to 1 and 21.72 to 1 for the city's general fund. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the Wichita Airport Authority close the public hearing, adopt the resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. Jeff Pyre, who is a board member of Docs Friends, is here and can answer any questions specific to the organization, and I would be happy to answer any questions as well.
Questions? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Vice Mayor, this is your plane, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'd like to take the recommended action to close the public hearing, adopt the resolution, and authorize necessary signatures.
Second, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Approval of travel for Mayor Longwell to attend the League of Kansas Municipalities, December 12th through 13th, 2019, Topeka, Kansas.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the travel for Mayor Longwell to attend the League of Kansas Municipalities, December 12th through the 13th, 2019.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to travel to the beautiful city of Topeka.
Round trip.
Round trip. Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Approval of travel for Councilmember Claycomb to attend the White House Conference with Women Municipal Leaders, December 11 through 13, 2019, Washington, D.C.
I move that we approve that travel.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, next item.
Councilmember appointments and comments.
Any board appointments? Any comments? Okay, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take a second just to clear up. There's been some, I would call misinformation put out about the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan. Populist's job was never to tell the city of Wichita, citizens of Wichita, what Century 2 was supposed to be. Their job was supposed to help us put together a master plan, gather information, engage the community, and that effort came from Project Wichita, which engaged about 14,000 Wichitans as well. So the entire time this has been engagement with the community. We've tried to get more people engaged and still are. There's still blue boxes over by Century 2. You can go and reach out to council members, but Populist's job was never that, and this effort is not to raise Century 2. The effort is to think about the entire East Bank, what that means for our future, and even how many phases it might take to pay for something like that, and put all of that together. Any notions that this effort is simply to destroy Century 2, or that Populist is supposed to tell us that we're supposed to have an aquarium or a movie theater or whatever that might be, is simply untrue, and we want to continue to engage people. And hopefully, those who have ideas about Century 2 continue to submit those, because Populist takes everything serious. I know I take everything serious on the committee, and we share that information. But again, this is not some underhanded idea to destroy Century 2. If there's an awesome reuse for our city that's going to be beneficial, why wouldn't we do that? So I just wanted to clear that up. There's some information out there that's not completely accurate. I'll probably continue to say that because, again, this effort is to engage our community and think about our future and build for our future, something exciting. So just wanted to say that. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Tuttle.
On a different note, Councilmember Johnson and I yesterday traveled to the great city of Topeka. We were both appointed by the governor to be on the Complete Count Committee, which is the Census Committee. And just really want to remind everyone that as we venture into 2020, we'll be completing our 10-year annual census. And it's really important just for a couple of reasons, so we know who's in our community and who we're serving. Also to make sure we have accurate representation, but then also the financial dollars that come from the state and federal level from knowing how many people are in our community and knowing their demographics. So I'm also on the local Complete Count Committee, and we'll be the conduit between both and trying to work as hard as we can, especially to find the vulnerable and underserved populations and make sure that they have a voice and are counted. So the city's been leading that local charge and local efforts, and staff has done a really great job and should be commended for adding yet another thing to their job jar. But look forward to the cooperation of our entire community as we proceed forward with the census in 2020.
Anything else? Seeing none, I move we adjourn today's council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Cast your vote. And it's unanimous. We're adjourned.
She's not on the state committee. I haven't seen her in any of the local meetings. If she's